Hi everybody. So we did chapter 3 on Friday. We are at the point where the kids are kind of starting to explore. They were at a pool. Seth went off into the woods, found a lady in a shack, which was a little bit weird. And they're just a little bit like, what the heck is going on? So today what we're going to do is read the chapter first, and then I have some comprehension questions and just some like, would you do this, or why do you think this happened, sort of questions at the end. Not really an activity, just some questions. There's 10 of them. So we're going to read first, then move on. So chapter 4 is called The Hidden Pond. Let's make sure you can see it. Cool. All right. Rain pattered. Let's try that again. Rain pattered endlessly against the roof. Kendra had never heard such a noisy downpour. Then again, she had never been in an attic during a rainstorm. There was something relaxing about the steady drumming, so constant that it almost seemed inaudible without ever decreasing in volume. Standing at the window beside the telescope, she watched the deluge. The rain fell straight and hard. There was no wind, just layer upon layer of streaking droplets, blurring into a gray haze in the distance. The gutter below her was about to overflow. Seth sat on a stool in the corner, painting. Lena had been creating paint-by-number canvases for him, sketching them with expert speed, customizing each image to his specifications. The current project was a dragon battling a knight on horseback in a fuming wasteland, amid a fuming wasteland. Lena had outlined the image in considerable detail, including subtleties of light and shade, so that the finished products looked quite accomplished. She had taught Seth how to mix paint and given him samples of which hue corresponded to each number. For the current painting, she had incorporated more than 90 different shades. Kendra had rarely seen Seth demonstrate as much diligence as he did on the paintings. After a few brief lessons on how to apply the paint, including the purposes of different brushes and tools, he had already finished a large canvas of pirates sacking a town and a smaller one of a snake charmer diving away from a striking cobra. 2 impressive paintings in 3 days. He was an addict, and he was almost done with his latest project. Crossing to the bookshelf, Kendra ran a hand along the spines of the volumes. She had searched the room thoroughly and had yet to find the last keyhole, let alone the secret passage to the other side of the attic. Seth could be a pest, but now that he had become immersed in his paintings, she was starting to miss him. Maybe Lena would outline a painting for her. Kendra had turned down her initial offer, since it sounded childish, like coloring, but the finished product looked much less juvenile than Kendra had anticipated. Kendra opened the door and descended the stairs. The house was dim and quiet. The rainfall was more distant as she left the attic behind. She walked along the hall and down the stairs to the main floor. The house seemed too quiet. All the lights were out despite the gloom. Lena, which remember, housekeeper. There was no answer. Kendra went through the living room, the dining room, and into the kitchen. No sign of the housekeeper. Had she left? Opening the door to the basement, Kendra peered down the steps into the darkness. The stairs were made of stone, as if leading to a dungeon. Lena, she called uncertainly. Surely the woman wasn't down there without any light. Kendra went back down the hall and slid open the door to the study. Having not yet entered this particular room, she noticed at first the huge desk cluttered with books and papers. The massive head of a hairy boar was with jutting tusks hung mounted on the wall. A collection of grotesque wooden masks rested on a shelf. Golfing trophies lined another. Plaques decorated with wood-paneled walls, along with a framed display of military medals and ribbons. There was a black and white picture of a much younger Grandpa Sorensen showing off an enormous marlin. On the desk, inside the crystal sphere with a flat bottom, was an eerie replica of a human skull, no bigger than her thumb. Kendra slid the door to the study closed. She tried the garage, the parlor, the family room. Maybe Lena ran to the store. Kendra walked out to the back porch, shielded from the rain by the overhang. She loved the fresh, damp scent of rainfall. It continued to come down hard, puddling around the garden. Where did the butterflies hide from such a downpour? Then she saw Lena. The housekeeper knelt in the mud beside a bush blossoming with large blue and white roses, absolutely soaked, apparently weeding. Her white hair was plastered to her head and her housecoat was drenched. Lena? The housekeeper looked up, smiled, and waved. Kendra retrieved an umbrella from the hall closet and joined Lena in the garden. "You're sopping wet," Kendra said. Lena rooted out a weed. "It's a warm rain. I like being out in the weather." She stuffed the weed into a bulging garbage bag. "You're going to catch a cold." "I don't often take ill." She paused to stare up at the clouds. "And it won't last much longer." Kendra tilted her umbrella back and gazed heavenward. Leaden skies were in all directions. You think? Wait and see. The rain will pass within the hour. Your knees are all muddy. You think I've lost my marbles. The diminutive woman stood up and spread her arms wide, tilting her head back. Do you ever look up at the rain, Kendra? It feels like the sky is falling. Kendra tilted the umbrella back again. Millions of raindrops rushed toward her, some pelting her face and making her blink. Or like you're soaring up into the clouds, she said. I suppose I should get you inside before my unusual habits rub off. No, I didn't mean to disturb you. Back under the protection of the umbrella, Kendra wiped droplets from her forehead. I guess you don't want the umbrella? That would defeat the purpose. I'll be inside shortly. Kendra returned to the house. She stole glances at Lena through the window. It was just so peculiar. She couldn't resist spying. Sometimes Lena was working, sometimes she was smelling a blossom or stroking its petals, and the rain just kept falling. Kendra was sitting on her bed reading poems by Shel Silverstein when the room suddenly brightened. The sun was out. Lena had been right about the rain. It had relented about 40 minutes after her prediction. The housekeeper had come inside, changed out of her wet clothes, and made sandwiches. Across the room, the painting of the knight charging the dragon was complete. Seth had gone outside an hour ago, and Kendra was in a lazy mood. Just as Kendra returned her attention to the latest poem, Seth burst into the room, breathing hard. He wore only socks on his feet. His clothes were streaked with mud. You have to come see what I found in the woods. Another witch? No, way cooler. A hobo camp? I'm not going to say, you just have to come see. Does it involve hermits or lunatics? No people, he said. How far from the yard? Not far. We could get in trouble. Besides, it's muddy out. Grandpa is hiding a beautiful park in the woods, Seth blurted. What? Kendra asked. You have to come see it. Put on goulashes or something. Kendra closed the book. The sunlight came and went, depending on the shifting clouds. A soft breeze ruffled the foliage. The woods smelled mulchy. Scrambling over a damp, rotting log, Kendra shrieked when she saw a glistening white frog. Seth turned around. Awesome. Try disgusting. I've never seen a white frog, said Seth. He tried to grab it, but the frog took an enormous leap as he approached. Whoa, that thing flew. He checked the underbrush where the frog had landed, but found nothing. Hurry up, Kendra said, glancing the way that they had come. The house was no longer in sight, and she could not shake the sick, nervous feeling in her stomach. Unlike her little brother, Kendra was not a natural rule breaker. But she was in all accelerated classes at school, got almost perfect grades, kept her room tidy, and always practiced for her piano lessons. Seth, on the other hand, settled for lousy grades, routinely skipped his homework, and earned frequent detentions. Of course, he was also the one with all the friends, so maybe there was a method to his madness. What's the rush? He took the lead again, blazing a trail through the undergrowth. The longer that we're here, the more likely somebody will notice we're missing. It isn't much farther. See that hedge? It was not exactly a hedge, more like a tall barrier of unkept bushes. You call that a hedge? The park is on the far side. The wall of bushes extended as far as Kendra could see in either direction. How do we get around it? Through it. You'll see. They reached the bushes and Seth turned left, studying the leafy barricade as he went, occasionally squatting and checking closer. The interlocked bushes ranged from 10 to 12 feet tall, and they looked really thick. Okay, I think this is where I squirmed through. There was a deep indentation at the base where two bushes overlapped. Seth dropped to all fours and forced his way in. You're gonna have a billion ticks, Kendra predicted. They're all hiding from the rain, he replied with perfect confidence. Kendra got down and followed him. I don't think this is the same way I got through last time, Seth admitted. It's a little more cramped, but it should work. He was now slithering on his belly. This better be good. Kendra squirmed on her elbows, eyes squinted. The damp ground felt cold and droplets fell from the bush as she jostled it. Seth reached the far side and stood up. She crawled through as well, her eyes widening as she got to her feet. Before her lay a pristine pond, a couple of 100 yards across, with a small, verdant island at the center. A series of elaborate gazebos surrounded the pond, interconnected with a whitewashed boardwalk. Flowering vines wound along the latticework of impressive promenade. Elegant swans glided on the water. Butterflies and hummingbirds wove and darted among the blossoms. On the far side of the pond, peacocks strutted and preened. What in the world? Kendra gasped. Come on, Seth started across the lush, neatly mown lawn toward the nearest gazebo. A gazebo is like a circular thing that's just like a place to sit, kind of like a porch, just circular, kind of on the edge of the water. So it's on the edge of the pond. Kendra looked back, understanding why Seth had called this disheveled barrier of bushes a hedge. On this side, the bushes were neatly trimmed. The hedgerow encompassed an entire area with a single arched arched entryway off to one side. "Why didn't we come through the doorway?" Kendra asked, trotting after her brother. Shortcut. Seth paused at the white steps leading up to the gazebo to pluck a piece of fruit from the espalier. Not entirely sure what that is. We can look that up. "Try one." "You should wash it," Kendra said. "It just rained." Then he took a bite. "It's so good." Kendra tried one. It was the sweetest nectarine she had ever tasted. Delicious. Together they mounted the steps of the extravagant pavilion. The wood railing was perfectly smooth. Although unshielded from the elements, all the woodwork appeared to be in flawless condition. No peeling paint, no cracks, no splinters. The gazebo was furnished with white wicker love seats and chairs. In some places, the ubiquitous vines had been woven into living wreaths and other fanciful patterns. A bright parrot sat on the high perch staring down at them. "Look at that parrot!" Kendra exclaimed. "Last time I saw some monkeys," Seth said. "Little guys with long arms. They were swinging all over the place. And there was a goat. It ran away as soon as it saw me." Oh, here we go. This would be the gazebo. You have a little boathouse here, but this is the pond. There's an island in the middle. And then there's a boardwalk that goes all the way around the pond. So you have the hedge kind of over here. Down at the bottom, there's Seth. And then you have the woods in the background. It might be hard to see on the camera. But this is kind of what it would look like inside of it. Seth took off, clomping down one of the boardwalks. Kendra followed more slowly, absorbing the scene. It looked like a setting of a fairy tale wedding. She counted 12 pavilions, each unique. One had a small white quay projecting into the pond. The little pier was connected to a floating shed that had to be a boathouse. Kendra strolled after Seth, whose ruckus was sending the swans drifting toward the far side of the lake, leaving V-shaped ripples in their wake. The sun broke through the clouds and gleamed upon the water. Why would Grandpa Sorensen keep a place like this secret? It was magnificent. Why go through all the trouble of maintaining it if not to enjoy it? Hundreds of people could gather here with room to spare. Kendra went to the gazebo with the pier and found that the boathouse was locked. It was not large. She guessed it had a few canoes or rowboats. Maybe Grandpa Sorensen would give them permission to paddle around the pond. No, she could not even tell him she knew about this place. Was this why he had told her about the ticks? He had told them about the ticks and made the rules against venturing into the woods to keep this little Eden hidden? Could he be so selfish and secretive? Kendra finished a complete lap around the pond, walking on clean wooden planks the entire way. Across the pond, Seth yelled, and a small flock of cockatoos took flight. The sun retreated behind the clouds. They needed to get back. Kendra told herself that she could return later. Kendra was concerned when she cut into her steak. They're at dinner now. The middle was pink, almost red at the center. Grandpa Sorensen and Dale were already taking bites. "Is my steak cooked?" Kendra ventured to ask. "Of course it's cooked," Dale said around a mouthful. "It's pretty red in the middle." "It's the only way to eat a steak," Grandpa said, dabbing his mouth with a linen napkin. "Medium rare. Keeps it juicy and tender. If you cook it all the way through, you might as well eat shoe leather." Kendra glanced at Lena. "Go ahead, dear," the woman encouraged. "You won't get sick. I cooked it plenty." "I like it," Seth said, chewing on a bite. "Do we have any ketchup?" "Why would you go and ruin a perfectly good steak with ketchup?" Dale moaned. "You put it on your eggs," Lena reminded him, placing a bottle in front of Seth. "That's different. Ketchup and onions on eggs is a necessity." "That's sickening," Seth said, upending the bottle over his steak. Kendra took a bite of the garlic potatoes. They were tasty. Mustering her courage, she sampled the steak. Bursting with flavorful seasoning, it was much easier to chew on than any other steak that she had ever eaten. "This steak is wonderful," she said. "Thank you, dear," said Lena. They ate in silence for a few minutes. Grandpa dabbed his mouth with his napkin again and cleared his throat. "What do you suppose makes people so eager to break rules?" Kendra felt a jolt of guilt. The question was addressed generally and hung there waiting for a response. When nobody answered, Grandpa continued. "Is it simply the pleasure of disobedience, the thrill of the rebellion?" Kendra glanced at Seth. He stared at his plate, picking at his potatoes. "Were the rules unfair, Kendra? Was I being unreasonable?" "No." "Did I leave you with nothing to do, Seth? No pool, no treehouse, no toys or hobbies?" "We had things to do." "Then why did you two go into the woods? I warned you that there would be consequences." "Why are you hiding weird old ladies out in the forest?" Seth blurted out. "Weird old ladies?" Grandpa asked. "Yeah, what about that?" Grandpa nodded thoughtfully. "She had rotten rope. You didn't blow on it, did you?" "I didn't go near her. She was freaky. She came to me and asked if she could build a shack on my property. She promised to keep to herself. I saw no harm in it. You shouldn't go bothering her." "Seth found your private retreat," Kendra said. "He wanted me to see it. My curiosity got the better of me." "Private retreat? Big pond? Fancy boardwalk, parrots and swans and peacocks? Grandpa looked at Dale, speechless, and Dale shrugged. I was hoping you'd take us out on a boat, Kendra said. Who said anything about a boat? Kendra rolled her eyes. I saw the boathouse, Grandpa. He tossed his hands up and shook his head. Kendra set her fork down. Why would you let such a nice place go to waste? This is my business, Grandpa said. Yours was to obey my rules for your own protection. We're not afraid of ticks, Seth said. Grandpa folded his hands and lowered his eyes. I was not entirely honest with you about why I needed you to stay out of the woods. He lifted his gaze. On my land, I provide refuge for some dangerous animals, many of them endangered. This includes poisonous snakes, toads, spiders, and scorpions, along with bigger game, wolves, apes, panthers. I use chemicals and other controls to keep them away from the yard. But the woods are extremely hazardous, particularly the island in the center of the lake. It is deliberately infested with inland taipans, also called fierce snakes, the deadliest serpent known to man. Why didn't you warn us? Kendra asked. My preserve is a secret. I have all necessary licenses, but if my neighbors complained, those could be revoked. You must not tell a soul, not even your parents. We saw a white frog, Seth said breathlessly. Was that poisonous? Grandpa nodded. Quite lethal. In Central America, the indigenous people used them to fashion poison darts. Seth tried to catch it. Had he succeeded? Grandpa said gravely. He would be dead. Seth swallowed. I'll never go into the woods again. I trust you won't, Grandpa said. All the same, a rule is of no value unless the punishment is enforced. You will have to stay in your room for the rest of your stay. What? Seth said. But you lied to us. Being afraid of ticks is a lame reason to stay out of the woods. I just thought you were treating us like babies. You should have brought those concerns to me, Grandpa said. Was I unclear about the rules or the consequences? You were unclear about the reasons, Seth said. That is my right. I am your grandfather, and this is my property. I am your grandson. You should have told me the truth. You're not setting a very good example. Kendra tried not to laugh. Seth was in lawyer mode. He always tried to maneuver out of trouble with their parents. Sometimes he made some pretty good points. What do you think, Kendra? Grandpa asked. Seth had not expected him to solicit her opinion, or she had not expected him to solicit her opinion. She tried to collect her thoughts. Well, I agree that you didn't tell us the whole truth. No way would I have gone into the woods if I knew that there would be dangerous animals. Me neither, Seth said. I made 2 simple rules, you understood them, and you broke them. Just because I chose not to share all my reasons for making the rules, you think you should escape punishment? Yes, Seth said, just this once. That doesn't sound fair to me, Grandpa said. Unless the punishments are enforced, rules lose all their power. But we won't do it again, Seth said. We promise. Don't lock us up in the house for 2 weeks. Don't blame me, Grandpa said. You locked yourself up by disregarding the rules. Kendra, what do you think would be fair? Maybe you could give us a reduced punishment as a warning. Then the full punishment if we mess up again. Reduced punishment, Grandpa mused. So you still pay the price for your disobedience, but you get 1 more chance. I might be able to live with that. Seth? Better than the whole punishment. That settles it. I will reduce your sentence to a single day. You will spend tomorrow confined to the attic. You can come down for meals and you can use the bathroom, but that is all. Break any of my rules again and you will not leave the attic until your parents come for you, for your own safety. Understood? Yes, sir, Kendra said. Seth nodded his agreement. All right, so that's the end of that chapter. The next one's called Journal of Secrets. Remember, Kendra has been trying to open a journal with some keys. I realized as I was reading that some of these questions are from the next chapter. So we're just gonna attempt to cross them out really quick so that we don't ruin too much about the next chapter. Let's see. So you got a couple less questions there. Only about 7 then. I think that's good. Hopefully you can't read those too much. Oh well, here we go. So chapter 4, questions, let's put that in the middle. Starting with when Kendra was walking around the house trying to find Lena, she went inside Grandpa's office. So what was inside the crystal ball that was on Grandpa Sorensen's desk? She saw some things hanging on the wall, all that stuff, but what was on his desk that she was like, ooh, that's a bit eerie? Number 2, what did they find hidden in the middle of the Sorensen's forest? And number 3, name a few of the animals that they saw in that forest garden. Number 4, what did Grandpa Sorensen say that the secret garden was used for. So why does he have this secret garden? Maybe what's on that center island? You could answer that question. We're going to skip 5 and 6. Number 7 here says, how did Kendra feel when Grandpa Sorensen asked why people were so eager to break the rules? So at dinner when he starts talking, he just kind of throws out there a question of, why are people so eager to break rules? How does Kendra feel when he says that? Number 8, do you think that Grandpa should have told the kids why he established these rules, and then why or why not? So should he have told them that it's a dangerous place? There's a ton of animals, that they're safest on in the garden, or not in the garden, on the lawn, like staying within the boundary of the house instead of going out in the forest. Should he have told them why? And then the last one. Do you agree with Kendra's decision to go into the woods with Seth to go see this hidden preserve? And then why or why not? So go ahead and answer those. Again, you can always send them to me. I have gotten some responses. So here's my email, just in case you feel like you want to send me your stuff. So it's kjones@wusd1.org. So you can always send me your responses if you want to. Shoot me an email, all that stuff. So yeah, this will be up on Monday. I will have the next chapter, chapter 5, which is really when we're going to get into some of the cool stuff. It really picks up from here. So after chapter 5, that'll be out on Wednesday. So hope you guys have a good day.